Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Scouser Tommies with me, Jim Boardman. And of course, as always, I'm joined by Jay Reid at a time when the city is, I would say, is bouncing quite a bit because of sporting stuff. At least for those of us who are like in the red half or red three quarters of the city, as I sometimes think of it. It's all positive at the moment, all pretty decent, all pretty exciting, loads to look forward to. But even the blue part of the city can have some good times with sport because, of course, it's Grand National weekend. So is that your experience this week, Jay? Is it been pretty bouncing in your day to day? Everyone getting excited for the racing and for the footy and all the rest of it?
Well, yeah, the red half have been looking forward to the football. Maybe not so much the Blues, because heaven forbid they have to play 3 games in a week. You know, big clubs like us, we're used to that. But Frank Lampard seems to complain that he had to play 3 times within a week. Just shows the prestige of the man. He should have known that when he was playing at Chelsea. But
I wonder if he's actually living in the city now, or if that's what's doing his head, because he's having to commute back down to London and stuff.
I reckon he's probably cooped up at a hotel somewhere in Cheshire or Manchester. He probably doesn't want to be in the city for fear that, not just the laughs that he'll get at Liverpool from Liverpool fans and probably a bit of abuse, but I'm sure the Everton fans at the moment, for all the protesting that they did to get him in, now probably want him out. Because it's not gone great. But yeah, as you said, it's Grand National weekend for those who aren't aware. It's, you know, the most famous horse race in the world, or steeplechase, as it's touted, and it's gone on for years, and it's the one event that ties the whole of the city together. Whatever your sporting allegiance, everyone comes together for the Grand National. It's Friday as we record. It's Ladies' Day, and it's one that the ladies of the city really do look forward to. You know, there's people who save up all year round and really put everything into this day and ignore what the mockery of some papers and outlets will publish. It's a day of celebration. The men and women of the city love it, and obviously it's Grand National Day tomorrow, which evokes some good childhood memories, maybe some not good recent memories where I've not won in recent times, but it's something that ignites all families together. It brings them close. I've got great memories sitting around the TV and having the sweepstake in the family and stuff like that. So it is nice to have in the city.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think the stuff with Ladies' Day is a bit sort of annoying because it's like there's people who are getting excited for a massive day out, and it's like, I don't know, it's a bit like getting ready for a wedding in a way. Like the people dress up like it's a wedding, so there's loads of money being spent, like you say, saving up. The day out itself costs money, but your outfit and stuff costs money. And it's not, you know, we're not talking about wealthy people there. This is like, you know, working class people having the chance to dress up for the day and have a day where they feel special. And then you get the sort of, I don't know, the snobbery end of the gutter press at times, just basically slagging them all off, looking for the most drunken person they can find. And it's just, I mean, I don't know, it's just, the same papers will then be, you know, talking about body image and how bad it is that people criticise people's body image. And the whole situation is just distasteful in terms of how it's treated. But you take all that away and people are just having a laugh. And the thing is, apart from the fairly recent interest in Ladies' Day from the sort of press I mentioned, it has been a kind of thing where the rest of the country doesn't even kind of think about the Grand National that much until the day itself. But it's the 3-day event. It's something that's looked forward to. It's a shame in a way that the course doesn't get used more than it does. But when it does get used, it is massive. And I agree with what you're saying about the family traditions. It's usually in our house as a kid, you know, there'd be sweeps going round. You maybe get asked to pick a horse or something. But since I've had kids of my own and they're all sort of pretty grown up now. It's usually been a case of we all pick a horse, I pay for the bets, and then if there's any winnings, I actually have to give the winnings out. So it's like I never win. I mean, if we have an overall win in the house, it's usually, if I'm lucky, I make a couple of quid profit out of it. But that's not the issue. It's all about the fun of it and how you pick horses and stuff. And, you know, I mean, I think even the most seasoned punters in the world who do racing every day would admit that you don't necessarily look at the form, but it can be completely random, if you like, who wins.
Yeah, it's anyone's race. I do remember, I'm sure they still do it on the Echo, which, you know, has gone downhill as a newspaper because it's been taken up the city and stuff like that, and the journalists who work for it, or the decent ones, have all jumped ship. But you used to get the Echo on the Friday, and the front page of the Echo would be the 40 horse colours or jockey silks, and you could be able to cut them out into squares, and that would be our sweepstake. You know, you wouldn't pick per se what you wanted. It would just be names out the hat. It'd be like £1 or 50p in the pot or whatever, and that was the winning. So like you'd always had 4 or 5 people getting something back, and as you say, it's one of them things where everybody gets involved. Like my nan doesn't bet. She's never got involved in gambling in her life except on Grand National Day. It was always send me granddad up to the betting shop Saturday morning, come and get your betting slips. She'll write them out because he couldn't do it properly even though he was a regular gambler. And then sent them back off to the betting shop at lunchtime, and then you'd all sit down, you'd all watch the Grand National, and that's how it was for years and years, how I remember it. And then obviously as you sort of get on and move out, you know, you sort of come together for Grand National Day, even if like myself and my brothers and sisters don't live at home. You're all sort of try and get together for this one event, and it's just that little bit of, you know, family time, a bit of nostalgia. It probably may work around the country for other people, but in the city of Liverpool, as I said, it's something that unites us all and brings us all together. It's just a nice little moment, and yeah, it's anybody's race. If they say it's huge, it's 40 fences for a quarter mile, I think it is. A bit like the Premier League at the beginning, anyone could maybe win it, but unlike the Premier League, you know, this one's anyone's race, where at the moment it's sort of narrowing itself down to a 2-horse race. That's pretty much what we're in at the moment.
Yeah, it is similar in that way, isn't it? Because I mean, the Premier League's getting to a stage now where even the outsiders have got a chance to, if not even not to win it, to get a place. And of course, in the Grand National, a lot of us put our bets on each way. So you get in the first 4, you get some money, and so that's another sort of another similarity, I suppose, like Champions League places in the footy that pay out in the National. The sweep thing as well, I always remember going into work on a Monday and people saying who won the sweep, and it'd always be someone who you didn't want to win it, you know, and then there'd be other people saying, oh, my horse is still running, and there's all these sort of old sayings. Yes, they come out every year, the same ones. I got a donkey and all the rest of it, but it's a good thing. It gets us all together, and in a way it kind of like kickstarts the summer season, if you like. It's spring obviously, but it kind of like it separates the sort of dreary stuff from winter into the sort of hopeful stuff for this nice part of the year when we've got the longer days and all the rest of it. And of course it leads into as well, it's sort of, certainly for any Liverpool fan growing up in the 80s, it would be sort of part of the sort of run towards the excitement of Wembley and things like that, you know, the run towards the end of the league season. It's, you know, it's happened sort of at the business end of the footy season, and for a lot of times that was a good time to be a Liverpool fan because we were involved in so much, like this season, still involved in so many competitions. And I think we're recording this sort of just before the City game, and you might not get to listen to it till afterwards, but I think it's inevitable that we're going to talk about the City game. So maybe we'll just quickly get it out of the way, because then whatever happens, you know, you can kind of fast forward this bit if you don't want to hear it. But to be honest, I'm not feeling, I don't know about yourself, I'm not feeling too worried about the result in terms of losing. I think my fear is that we might end up with a draw, which isn't what we want.
A draw wouldn't be the worst result, because, you know, it's as you were, really, and then you you put all your chips on the table for the last 7 games and see where the ball lands. But I think it's probably a situation of a must not lose for either team. Listening to the Scouser pod with Carl and Dave this morning, which is always, a handy listen if you are looking forward to any game on AI. That's a plethora of knowledge from the two fellas to give you a good insight on what to expect within the game. And I think they both said if you were offered a draw, would you take it? And I think if I get this right, I think Carl said yes and Dave was unanimous no. And obviously that's how Dave is. And
Dave would never accept a draw, would he? He wouldn't even accept a 3-0 win, if I bet,
No, why would he? We'll wish Dave a happy birthday. It is today, whether we get this out today or not. But happy birthday to him.
Yeah,
so I'm not actually that concerned as to what the results will be. I've gone into these games in the past thinking, oh my God, we've got to be on our best game here, and just do what we can to get out of there, and probably would have took a draw. But I feel like now we're probably in better shape squad wise, and I feel like we could comfortably go there and win, and we've got multiple ways which we can win. I think that's what this team's become in recent years, especially this season. There's multiple ways to win. We seem to have clicked into this mode in the last 5-6 weeks where we will just do enough, and sometimes some people perceive that as we're being a bit sloppy and slack, but other ways to see it is it's being very professional and managing each game as it comes and making sure you get out of there. And I think we were on a run of 12 clean sheets in 13 or 14 games or something crazy like that. So I'm not too concerned. I know what you say about the fear of a draw because we've seen it a lot, especially in the early game at Anfield, but I think that one was a bit helter-skelter. We were missing Trent, especially. We didn't have Diaz. We were a bit wobbly in midfield at the time. I feel like we're going there now with all the weapons we have in our armoury to mount a serious assault on them. And I think whoever wins the game doesn't necessarily win the title, but they put themselves in a very, very, very strong position. And it'll take something catastrophic then for the team to collapse, to lose it from that point, because I think it's a huge momentum swing with 7 games to go. Whoever does take the 3 points, if it's won on a day, it will go a long way, and it could mentally damage a team. And I think we would be less affected if we did lose, because I think we've got so many strong characters and a strong manager. But a loss for City could be catastrophic mentally for them, because I just don't think at the moment they've got the leadership team and the qualities to bounce back from it. If this isn't listened to until after City, then you may have a totally different perception of the game. But that's how I sort of read it going into the game, and just the feeling around the city, around the place, the people you speak to, it's a confidence now. I think if this game was played 7-8 weeks ago, there wouldn't have been such a confidence. But that run we've been on in recent times, the 10 wins in the league on the spin, there's an air of confidence about us now.
Yeah, and I think the idea, obviously Sky love to pitch these sort of things as title deciders, and if it'd been getting played in October, they'd be doing it. Then the week later, they'd be talking about another title decider and stuff. That's how Sky like to do these things and how they like to build them up. And I'm sure other broadcasters around the world will do the same. Other media outlets will do the same. And it's close to a title decider because, as you say, you feel like it will have a massive, not just on the points, as you say, in terms of the sort of effect afterwards and how teams perform in the wake of whatever the result is they get. But as we all know, the way this is a title decider in itself is if both teams get the same points from the rest of the season, win every game left after this. And, as we've seen, that doesn't always happen. Points get dropped. Teams have bad days and all the rest of it. So it is still open. And as you say, it's how you respond to it. And I think that's something I've enjoyed under Klopp, is how we do respond to things, often within a game and after games. So I've seen it far too often under other managers, and I'm not going to name names because I think it happened under a string of them, is that we'd have something bad go against us in a game and we just basically lose our heads. We just lose our confidence, even down to a referee making a bad decision, that we'd be angry with the ref and we'd start focusing on what the ref had done, When in reality, whether the ref's done the right or wrong thing, it's done. It's happened. He's not going to change his mind now. And you've got to pick yourselves up and go and do something about it. When you concede a goal, whether it was bad luck, a piece of brilliance, dodgy referee, dodgy lino, doesn't matter. It's gone in. They've scored. You need to do something about it. And this side under Klopp, from day one, has been instilling that into them, that that's what you've got to do. You've got to take control of the game. You've got to, you've got to put it right now. And I think, that character, if you like, that we've got now under Klopp is something that reminds me of the Liverpool teams of the 80s and 90s, when we were winning trophies for fun. We were involved in all the competitions pretty much all the time, when the games were coming thick and fast. And that's the case now. The games are coming thick and fast, but the squad we've got now, as you just mentioned then, I think on the last Raw I did a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last weekend, time's so hard to keep track of these days, I said that the squad's unreal, because it's not just the first 11 that Klopp has to look at what he's going to pick with an eye on the next game, or an eye on fitness and the rest of it. He's got to look at the bench in the same way, because there's people now having to be left off the bench. The squad is that good.
Yeah, I don't think not in my time watching Liverpool, we had this quality of squad, and as you say, the confidence and the mental capacity within the squad to, if you face a little bit of adversity, just get up and dust yourself off and carry on. We in the 27 years or whatever it is I've been watching Liverpool, there has always been a weak aspect about us. And as you say, things go against us and we beat ourselves up. Now it's just you always feel we're gonna score. We'll always get something. There's always time on the clock. We've seen enough, especially under Jurgen Klopp, enough late winners in games. I always hark back to that Aston Villa game a couple of years ago when we were 1-0 down in the 88th minute, and Robbo and Mane scored and we went 2-1, and that a lot of people will say that was the title deciding game, even though it was in December or January. Where the moment where people thought, well, this team has got champion caliber written all over it. So we've seen it enough times in many other games that you should never write us off. To pick an 11, even for Sunday, I'm sure if you rounded up 10 people, they'd probably struggle maybe to match a similar 11, because everyone's got their own opinions, everyone's got what they like to see, everyone's got a difference in who they believe should be on the pitch, who shouldn't be on the pitch. It's just a wealth of riches. It's a great time to be a Liverpool fan. They don't come much better than this. To be the business end of the season going into April, have one trophy in the cabinet and still be in the hunt for 3 more. It's it is unprecedented for a reason. It doesn't happen very often. We've built this machine and we've done it the right way. We must add, we're playing Man City. We've done it the right way. They haven't. And it just feels like, you've just got to get on board the train and be involved with it, because we've seen enough bad times, and we're probably wise enough and long enough in the tooth, even though there's a difference in age between us, to know that it won't always be this good. There will be bad eventually somewhere down the line. So you've got to really revel in this. You've got to really enjoy it, because these times don't last forever. So yeah, I just got that bubbly feeling inside where you can't wait for the game now, and the joy is that they do come thick and fast. They are every 3 or 4 days. It's how we like them. It's how Klopp likes them. He bangs on about rhythm. We are so much better when we play every 3 or 4 days, because A, we've now got the squad capability, but B, it's just the intensity that we play and manage games at. It just seems to work in a perfect harmony between us, obviously as a team, a fan base, Klopp, Evan. It's just a perfect marriage.
I think there's this thing, isn't there, this sort of stereotype about German people being super efficient and stuff, which, there's maybe some truth in some senses about that, in terms as a nation, in how they organise themselves and all the rest of it. But the truth is, Klopp isn't the sort of stereotypical German that you'd think in that way, as a sort of cold, robotic type person that sometimes the stereotype kind of puts German people across as. And it's wrong to paint all people with that same brush. But the thing about Klopp is, however crazy he is on the touchline, however full of energy he is, however much he puts into all of his, he lives and breathes every single match we play, every press conference he's up for it. But what's really struck me this season with Liverpool is the absolute efficiency of Liverpool. That we're not going into third gear if second gear will do, but we know we've got third and fourth and fifth and sixth gears, whatever, however many gears we've got. Maybe we've got gears we don't even know about that we don't need. If we don't need to use them, we don't. And by doing that, when the next game comes up, we've got plenty in reserve for that game. And it's that ability to sort of to use everything we've got at our disposal when we need it, rather than just for the sake of it. You know, the way we manage games, the way we manage players. And I always love it whenever a player comes off early, one of the big ones, one of the big names, one of the front three, that there's always this sort of attempt by the commentator to talk about as if they're being dropped and as if they're being, you know, they weren't good enough. That's why they're being brought off. But the truth is that we've got enough players on the bench that we can just try something different. Someone's got a bit more energy in them. Maybe someone's just got a few different tricks and different skills. They complement each other. You know, if you pick in front three from 5 amazing players, then you've got so many combinations you can go with on that. I'm sure some maths expert can tell us exactly how many. I can't. But there's enough combinations off that. And that's just if you stay in it as a 3. You know, we've got options to do things differently, but then you look at your full-backs and how much of a difference they make in an attacking sense. Even Joel Matip is an attacker at times. And that's the thing about this team. It's an entertaining team. It's not boring to watch. It can be a bit boring at times. I think the last league game was a bit boring in stages. I'd been a bit rough at the time and I almost dozed off, I'm sure, at one point, which is unusual for a match. But that's because we just had it under control. You know, you had to watch it the way you sort of watch a pan of water boiling up, that, you know, you're sort of keeping a rough eye on it, but you're not sort of standing over it every second. And that's what we were doing. We were just doing enough to get through. But the other thing I think is really good about the situation with the squad is next season, 5 subs in the Premier League. So it won't just be a case of like picking 8 subs and then deciding which 3 you bring on and keeping one back in case of injury. That makes such a difference that we can put players on for 60 knowing we can make some really vital changes after 60 and really switch things around, whether it's a change that just lets us keep control of the game and, you know, avoid being sort of attacked and caught out, or whether it's changes where we just really go for the jugular and finish the opposition off.
I think that 5 sub thing has been huge help to us, and especially in the current run of games that we're in. I mean, Klopp's been an advocate for it for a long time, and, you know, people will have agendas and say it's because we've got such a big squad. Well, you know, everyone has got a capability to buy players unless you're in a transfer embargo, which, you know, even Chelsea was at some point and still managed to bring players in.
And you can loan players, you can bring your own players through, you know, and you can
nobody's
give players
stopping
chances.
you bringing players. Like, there's no rules to say that you can't have a certain amount of players in your squad. Like some managers, like Mr. Dyson, you know, he done us a great favour on Wednesday. He couldn't do it the weekend, but, you know, one favour out of 2 ain't bad. He has a moan and a whinge because, you know, he's probably operating on a squad of 17, 18 players, and that's his choice. But that's his choice. Like, nobody is forcing him to do that. And I think, you know, if you look at the schedule of games which we've had across, you know, the week just past and the week ahead, Watford, 3 subs available. But then Benfica, Champions League, 5 available, use them all. Man City in the league this weekend, 3 subs available. We all know Klopp will use 3 subs. However he uses them, that's his own choice. Next midweek, Benfica, 5 subs available. Man City in the FA Cup, 5 subs available. And then we go back to a couple of league games against United and Everton. And then, you know, all being well, we progress in the Champions League. I think after Everton is the next round of the Champions League. So that's wedged either side of Newcastle in the league. So again, another midweek game, which there's 5 subs available. And as you said, obviously the quality of squad we've got, it gives us the options to keep things fresh. You know, there's a reason why we've got this far. And the Champions League's had 5 subs and the FA Cup, and I think the League Cup did as well this season. It's just given us the option to use the 5 subs. Everyone's got the option if they play in these competitions. It's just using them wisely. And as you said, I think there was an idiotic question labelled at Mane the other night, and was like, was the subs pre-planned and whatever? And, you know, media savvy are players these days. He didn't rise to the bait, but yeah, it possibly was. But it's for the need of the team. Like, it's not an individualistic game. If it was an individualistic game, you'd be at Man United and you'd be 7th in the table because they're a team of individuals. This is a team. They all work for one common goal, and that's the best for the club, the best for the team. And that's why they're in the hunt for 5 trophies, because it's managed correctly, and it goes back to that German efficiency as it might be with Jurgen Klopp and his management team. But it's so thought out and so pre-planned in terms of, all right, they say the next game is the most important, but, they are always looking down the line. It's with one eye. There was a reason why Henderson was on the bench against Benfica and Thiago come off at 60 minutes. Like, we all probably know what is going to be the lineup, whether we agree with it or not. That's down to personal opinion, but the more than likelihood is those two lads are played, 30 minutes and 60 minutes respectively on Tuesday night, and then we'll be fresh to line up on Sunday. That's just how it is, as Klopp says. Like, he's managing the squad to the best of his ability, and he's getting every last ounce because the competition for places is so high.
Yeah, I mean, I like something he said about someone saying, is it just one game at a time? And he actually admitted that sometimes, no, it is one game at a time. That's what you focus on, but you do sometimes have a little think about what's next, just in terms of whether you might give a player, a spell on the bench or take him off early or something. But, and he talked about, I can't remember if it's before or after the game, but he's saying we are not an arrogant team. And that word is just, it's something that's ingrained in my memory from being a Liverpool fan in the 80s and stuff. And before the Manx started to winning things, because they always struck me as an arrogant team who weren't delivering. And I think, that's something that Klopp's made sure we haven't been, that when we weren't delivering, when he first joined and, and it took a bit of time to get us back to where exactly we wanted to be, he's never let us be arrogant. We've always been humble about stuff. We enjoy what we do. You can see them made up when they win. The team spirit's unreal. And they all love the club. It was, I don't know if you saw this, it's possibly on his own Twitter actually or something, but, Thiago, there was photos of him wandering around the Albert Dock last weekend, and they're just embracing the city as well, which is something I don't think you always get with other clubs, certainly ones outside of London. You don't really see stories. I mean, I'm not sure what the sites of Manchester are, but you don't really see stories of Man City players wandering around the centre of Manchester and photo ops with the kids, do you?
No. We've got a good city, so like it's probably one of the attractions as well for players to come to Liverpool, because we've got so much to offer as a city, whether you're culturally, musically, sport. There's a lot going on. There's always a buzz around the city. There's always something happening, and I think depending on where you come from in the world, it's not an overwhelming city in terms of if you went to London, it can be pretty overwhelming. I'm not a massive fan of London myself. I'll be going to Wembley, but I'm going there on business, not on pleasure, as you say.
Yeah.
But even like I've been to Manchester a couple of times. Manchester can be quite overwhelming. It's a lot of high-rise buildings, a lot of traffic, people, and vehicle traffic. It does seem to be a lot of hustle and bustle. And Liverpool is, as the nature of the people, it can be quite laid back as well. And I think that probably helps with players who join the club. And it's not always 100% focused on football. You can take a step back and enjoy what we've got to offer. And obviously the people of the city as well will always welcome you, whether you're a new player or whether you've been here 10 years. You'll always get a healthy and friendly reception. It's just the nature of the people that we are. Maybe not the Evertonians, if they spotted a few of theirs walking around the city at the moment. I'm sure Richarlison's probably not walking around the docks today. But it just ties in with what we are as people, and as a club. We are humble people. We are just down to earth, laid back. And Klopp gets it. Like, he didn't join this club by accident. I think it was in the interview with Peter Crouch last weekend. He said, like, when Liverpool called, it wasn't even a question to think about it. He was on holiday in Portugal. I think he said, pack your bags, we're going. Like, it wasn't even time to think. It was a decision made straight away, because it just worked. It just fitted for him. He fits well in the city. The city fits well, and the club with him. It's just a perfect marriage.
Yeah, it's amazing actually how many people of other clubs quietly admit they wish they had Klopp as well. I do find that good. And then of course you always get the usual suspects who are just looking to find any way possible to just sort of lower the tone and slag people off, and they'll always find a way to try and slag Klopp off. But you know what? They just don't seem to ever get anything that stands up. You know, you can take the piss out of managers left, right, and centre, as we always do. But with Klopp, they really struggle. I mean, I think the last time they got away with it, and they didn't really get away with it, was when they tried to make out that he was going overboard by doing the sort of fist pumpy type stuff when we beat or drew with West Brom. But you know, the context, we all know the context of that was that it was really the start of us starting to turn things around again and get our confidence and all the rest of it. But you know, everything he does, other clubs are trying to emulate. You know, that's why Chelsea, I think, brought that manager in. That's why I think Man United have been trying to see if there's a German manager they can bring in. It's the thing is, though, they're thinking that that's what the answer is. It's the German, but it's not. It's the man. And there aren't any other Jurgen Klopps out there. And that's going to be a problem for Liverpool in the future, no matter what happens when it's time for him to go. We're obviously going to struggle because it's not Jurgen Klopp that's going to be the manager, and we're going to miss him. And I just hope that we sort out the transition properly, because it's the most difficult thing to do. And I think in football, when you're running a decent team, is to just make sure the next man that comes in a way that's smooth, that there's no sort of worries, no sort of hiccups or anything, that he comes in and it's almost seamless. And I hope he's doing that, because I think with Pep and other people he's got around him at the club, maybe if they can stay on and they'll have people identified. But it's something we've got to worry about in the future. It's something that, if you want an example of how important it is to change managers, it's just, we've mentioned him a couple of times, but I think we've got to give him a proper mention. The lads across the park, they're just not having a good time of it, are they? They're just, you know, I mean, we've joked for years about Everton going down and stuff like that, and they've come close a couple of times, but it's not looking good right now, is it?
No, it's large becoming a reality, and I think after Wednesday's results, the loss to Burnley and the manner of the loss, I mean, they didn't even score up open play, for God's sake. They got given 2 penalties, and you know, Richarlison did convert them, but then I think it was Sean Dyche said in his interview after the game, he said to his lads at half time, these don't know how to win a game.
Yeah.
And that's striking coming from Burnley. Sean Dyche of Burnley, like, you know, he's got his qualities and he does what he does within his club and his remit. But it's Burnley, for God's sake. They're like a small club from Lancashire who were rightfully probably punching way above their weight. They'd be more than probably happy to be somewhere lingering around the bottom of the Championship, but you know, as they are, they're doing it in the Premiership. And if it become a reality on Thursday morning when I went into work, I had joked on Wednesday, it was like, oh, big game for you lads tonight, sort of thing. And you go into work on Thursday, and the first words out of the mouth was, we're down, we're done.
Yeah,
a lot of them have literally given up now. But I think there's 9 games left for them. There's not a lot of points on the board as you look at the fixtures and say, well, you'd put a ring around that game and say, well, yeah, that's 3 points, you know, pretty much good shot at that. But then, you know, coming to Anfield for the derby, they've written that one off straight away, as well as other games, and they've sort of assessed their options and said, like, they genuinely think they're going down. And as you say, we laughed and joked, and, you know, it's one of them long running thing, like, use the go down, but they never have, and you sort of like think, oh no, they'll always get out of it. Like, and even back a few weeks, you think they'll worm the way out somehow, but it's fast approaching the reality that they could do. I would love it purely for the fact of, even if they went down for 1 year, it would be a reality check for them. And you know, I'm in the camp of, you live in the city and you've got friends and family with Evertonians, and you wouldn't wish ill on them, but you know, there's a lot of hatred still within the city between the football clubs. A lot of it does come from Everton because they're a smaller club than us. Like, Liverpool have always been the bigger brother who's looked down upon them and laughed upon them, and they've always, you know, retaliated and fought back. And there is, you know, still a lot of people who are quite bitter, is the term that's used, and vitriol towards us, and say a lot of nasty things. And maybe for myself, it's like, well, you know, knock yourself down a peg or two and have a reality check, and then, you know, appreciate football for what it is. Like, we've had bad times too, but you just got to get on with it. Like, you can't always blame somebody else. You've got to just look after your own ship. And if they do go down, it would just be funny when we're playing Real Madrid on a Wednesday night and they're playing Rotherham.
Yeah.
Like, it's just everyone's got their own opinion. Some people don't want to see them go because they'll miss the derby. Other people do and want to see them gone forever. I'm just of the opinion if they go down for a year or two, you know, it would just be quite funny and a bit of a reality check for them to understand, like, you know, we're the big dogs in the city. And I think Klopp himself said the other day, this city isn't big enough for both teams. There's only us and them, or something like that. A real team like us, and then there's them, or something like that. And it was like an old Shankly quote, wasn't it? The Liverpool reserves team.
Yeah.
It's just, it's come to a point now where it was always a laugh and a joke, and it's now becoming real. You're sort of like, oh well, what can you really say to them? They're gonna go, and it's all their own fault. That's all. Like, people can say now, they campaigned for Lampard. They wanted Rafa out, who, you know, rightly or wrongly, went there, and that was his choice, and other people's choices maybe within the club. But he was a man who knew how to fight a relegation fight. They've got a fella in who doesn't have a clue, and it's all their own fault because they campaigned to get him in. So they've got no sort of comeback. If that's the man they want and that's the man who takes them down, then it's all egg on their face, really.
There's probably some psychologists who could come up with the term for it, but there's this feeling with Evertonians, and I don't mean all Evertonians. And like you'll say, you can always think of a mate who, when you got them on their own, they're great. You know, they accept the situation at how it is, and you know they're not cocky or bitter towards you. You know what I mean? They're all right about things, and they're quite realistic and all the rest of it. But even then, quite often that person you're thinking of, you see him in with another couple of blues, and they change over to that sort of stereotype blue that's the blue that's almost like the default Evertonian, the default blue that you come across in life. And that's that bitter one who, quite honestly, puts hating Liverpool ahead of loving Everton. That's the way it comes across. That they would really, really, most seasons, and maybe because most seasons a defeat for them just means, you know, they might finish 11th instead of 10th or something along those lines. You know, a defeat for them isn't always the end of the world. And you think, there's times when they celebrate a Liverpool defeat more than they get worked up about an Everton loss. It's like, it's a massive consolation. Everton lost, but that doesn't matter because Liverpool did. And that seems to be what drives them on. And then within the ground, like you say, the stuff with having Rafa, you know, I can accept that some fans weren't keen on it. But you know what? Once you've made that decision as a club, you've got to accept it. I think I think back to Roy Hodgson and how much he wasn't accepted. But I think a lot of us tried to accept him. We didn't want him in, but once he came in, we did try with him. And as it was, he proved us right in the end. All our fears were realised. He was as bad as we all thought he would be. But we did at least try to give him some space and some room to be a manager. But he didn't really try and give us any space and any room to accept him as a manager. But I think Rafa did try his best for them. I think the problem is that they'll blame Liverpool for things. They'll blame Liverpool for things that happened decades ago. That wasn't the club, you know, it was just individuals maybe. And that's the way that you're not dealing with your own problems, because those things have happened. You've got to look at what's in front of you now. Yet they don't. They'll look at things that's happened in the past. They can remember a throw-in that went against them in a derby in 1973. That's the kind of mentality they've got. And it's no wonder that now a defeat does matter. Now a defeat could see you go down. And you know what? With the situation they're in, I mean, any club that leaves the Premier League has worries. They get parachute payments, but, you know, contracts aren't always designed to deal with the parachute payments. Players want Premier League money, but they're not going to get Premier League income, even with those parachute payments. And no matter what they say, they are not going to sell Goodison Park out in the Championship. They've no chance of selling the new stadium out if that still goes ahead, if they go down. The sponsors have gone. You know, the Russian money that they were getting for their training ground and so on, that's disappeared. This could be a massive crisis for Everton, and I think until they kind of like stop hating Liverpool and start looking at their own club, it might happen before they've even realised it's happened.
It could potentially be another Leeds situation where I think was it 16 years they were out the top flight.
Yeah,
like it might not be that long, but you know, when you put everything together, the reality is they had up the creek without a paddle. Like, it does not look good, and you wonder, like, do a lot of, as you say, do a lot of them realise, like, they would take going down, but beating us in the derby. Like, if you offered them, you beat us in the derby, and we don't win the league, but you go down, I reckon there'd be a large percentage of them would say, yeah, we'll take that.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
Because it stops you winning the league. Like, we could win the Champions League, the FA Cup, and the League Cup, but if you don't win the league and it's us that have stopped you, they'll celebrate that. They'd have DVDs printed and everything, because it'd be the historic derby draw or whatever they managed to do or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of issues at the club. I would imagine not many players have been signed with a relegation clause in the contracts, because they're not run very well. So, you know, they've lashed money about. They've lost 300 million in the last 3 seasons, or 300 million plus. You know, the finances are spiraling out of control. There's no one actually steering that ship. Like, it's literally leaking water, and it's going down very quickly. As I said, I wouldn't want to see them maybe gone for too long, because, you know, you do enjoy the derby. It's one of them games, but the reality of what they've got in front of them is a lot of players could go. They've not got a manager at the moment who's capable of doing anything. He's not proven anything. If they kept him when they went down, I wouldn't have any faith in the fact that he'd bring them back up. Yeah, it's not a nice prospect for them. I mean, it would just become, they become lost. They become Tranmere to us, in effect. Like, if they went down and were down there for 5, 6, 7, 8 years or more, they would effectively become Tranmere. That's their local derby, because Tranmere could eventually be in the same league as them.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, I remember there was a time when Everton were having a bit of trouble, and Tranmere looked like they could even get promoted, and it ended up not happening. And it's going back a while now. I think Aldo was playing for them at the time, but you know, that's the reality for them, is that their derby's going to be that. I'm just thinking though, there is one way that we could have a derby next season. It's worth giving a shout out to the LFC women's team, because they managed to get promoted back to the top flight. So we could see derbies in the Women's Super League next season at least.
Yeah, I mean, they've done mightily well. I think, well, you know, it ties in with Everton. The reality check came when they went down out of the Women's Super League a few years ago, and there was not a lot of investment from FSG within the women's game when they left the Super League. And, you know, it's women's football's only going in one direction, and it's going up. Like, you just got to look at the capacity crowds at the new camp for the Barcelona women's game in recent times. There's been a lot more social media appreciation of the Liverpool women's team. You know, they've romped the championship as it is, and the Women's Super League's on TV more. It's on terrestrial TV as well as satellite. So, you know, wouldn't it be great if, you know, not that they haven't won the top division, but, you know, we're champions of the divisions that they're in, Liverpool men's and Liverpool women.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty historic. Like, it's something that never been done, because obviously the formation of women's football was only recent. You know, and it would be nice to see the club appreciate them in some way or another. Maybe at a upcoming home game, if they bring the women's team out when they're finally presented with their trophy. I think they've only got 2 or 3 games left in their division. You know, if there's an opportunity for them to be presented on Anfield before the whole match, maybe, or a half time or something, you know, give these women the rightful recognition that they deserve, because, you know, they're working hard for what they're doing. It's not an easy profession, the women's football, and, you know, it is good to see that they are getting more and more publicity, and it's going in the right direction for them.
I think that's the thing as well. I think it is more of a sacrifice. I think if you're like potentially going to be a good footballer, and you can still kind of do, like, I mean, a lot of apprentices and that, they're sort of encouraged to do other studies alongside becoming a footballer. So maybe if it doesn't work out, they've still got a future job-wise. But, you know, you sacrifice that you do, and you gamble, if you like. Am I going to be like 50 grand a week, or am I going to just go and get a normal job? I think I'll pack my normal job off in for a bit then, and give this a go, see how I get on for the women. It's a lot more of a gamble, because, I mean, a lot of them are going to probably even take pay cuts to be full-time professionals, you know, at least up until recently. So it's a sport that's growing, though, and it's ironic, isn't it, that I think until quite recently one of the record attendances for a women's game in England at least was actually at Goodison, and it was sort of wartime when two ladies teams played each other, and Goodison Park was just basically packed out with people watching it because all the sort of men's football was suspended or hardly ever being played, and they just packed the place out. And apparently that resulted in the FA banning women from playing on any FA affiliated ground for sort of decades, and that only got lifted maybe 20, 30 years ago, if that, because the FA was so frightened that the women could actually take all the steal all the thunder from the men's game and basically make the men's game less attractive, and and basically ruin the game for men and stuff. And it just shows the kind of world we used to live in. But now, side by side, there's no reason for it. And you mentioned that about presentations as well. How about trophy parades? What do you reckon? Is it time for one of them? And what will Evertonians make of it? I mean, even if they survive, which maybe they'll do a parade for, to be quite honest, they could do a "We Didn't Go Down" open bus tour. But other than that, how are they going to cope with seeing us if we do keep on winning the silverware? And it's not guaranteed yet. I'm touching wood as I'm saying it, but we can dream for a second. If we go and win all those trophies, what are the Evertonians going to
do? Maybe go and live on the Wirral and support Tranmere. I think this was a question fired up by Eddie on Discord, to be fair to him. I don't know. They hate trophy parades for us because, they've had one since 1995, which is a long time ago. I went here for the Champions League one when we won it in Madrid because I was somewhere in Belfast, I think it was, when I was coming home, because I'd done one of them crazy trips where you'd have to get 2 flights and 4-hour car drives and all that business. So we missed the parade, but we're due a parade anyway because of, well, it won't happen in per se of, the league that we won, and we had to, celebrate it in COVID times with an empty stadium and stuff and whatever. So, we're owed one in terms of that, and our next one will be to make up for that. I don't think we'd do one in terms of, we won the Carabao Cup and stuff. That we maybe wouldn't be given the honour of a city parade, but anything bigger than that, it surely will. Yourself, when Liverpool get to finals or when Liverpool win things, the flags come out. I seen one today actually coming home from work. There's a young boy who lives at the top of my road, and every Friday or just before the games when Liverpool play, his bedroom window has the Liverpool flag outside because there's never Evertonian who lives next door. and it's just that sort of little rivalry that when we get to finals, the city is decorated red and white. There's flags everywhere. There's banners and stuff like that.
There's flags on cars and everything, isn't there? Scarves sticking out the windows.
Yeah, it's it takes over, and it does give you an actual perception that this thing, like Everton are the people's club of the city now. That there's a hell of a lot more Copites in this city than Evertonians. But I've known Evertonians to go a lot of it's a traditional sort of thing, having caravan holidays in North Wales. You'll go to North Wales for the weekend when you're if you're going to win the league, we're off to Wales because we don't see it over there. We can't see that. We're that far away. Or they won't turn a telly on. They'll stay indoors. They'll hide, and should the worst happen, they go down and we win the league. I think we should just have an open top bus parade just for that.
Yes.
Plaster it all over, change the bulbs on the Liver Birds because they don't own them anymore. They're not blue anymore. Put them back to red. They will self-combust, and so will Liverpool fans in pure joy and excitement. And I think the party would go on for days and days, weeks, all through the summer because there is no summer tournament. You'd live and remind them, but for them, geez, you'd be handing out St Madison's phone call numbers and antidepressants left, right, and centre, because I think for them, if that happened, they'd probably give up football. A few of them were whinging the other day over the 5 subs things, which we touched on before. Football's dead. But just because you haven't got 5 quality players to bring off your bench, that's what it is. It's not football's dead sort of thing. It's just how football's evolving.
Yeah.
They would really, really suffer. And the cliche thing that Liverpool fans we wouldn't shut up about it. We would be relentless. We just carry on and carry on and carry on. We wouldn't let them rest. If we managed to pull off the unthinkable, and they go down, I said it before. You might as well retire from football. But I'm gonna retract my statement, because I'd be going on a tour of every team that comes to Anfield or any away games you get to, and just let them all know that we've done the unthinkable, and just let them all know. Because if you do the unthinkable, you shout and scream about it. You don't let anyone forget about it. You will be unbearable.
Of course, all of this about trophies and parades, we've got to actually get out there and win things, haven't we? Benfica, I wouldn't say we've got the job done, we're part way there, aren't we? But you were saying just before we came on air, there's been a bit of trouble for Liverpool fans who were there. I mean, we sold out our end, but all the seats weren't full and people had a bad time.
Yeah, I think it was a situation, reminiscent of the old days, which is not good. The stigma that English fans abroad are rowdy and hostile and will cause trouble, and there may be small pockets of certain fan bases that still do that. But I think on the whole, it's mainly died down. And maybe when the English get together as supporting England as a nation, and there's all these small pockets of various clubs get together and bubble into one melting pot of idiocy, then maybe it might happen. Just another reason not to support England for me. But I do follow a lot of people who do go home and away with Liverpool. A lot of fans sort of have this, we will just go to away games only, and that's great. It's a dedication. It costs a lot of money and time. But they were left outside. They were sort of held in a holding area between a checkpoint and getting into the stadium. And the game there was a lot of videos and pictures going around 2 minutes before kickoff, and there was hundreds of fans outside, and then they let them in. And then the same sort of issue coming out, they held them inside the stadium for an hour, which isn't too uncommon to hold away fans back. It's usually half an hour, though it's not usually an hour. And then when they did come out the stadium, there was someone had the video where they were coming sort of down a ramp, and then there was a police cordon with heavily armed riot police just holding all the fans in a section of the road. And then the video cut off. It was only about 20-30 seconds long, but several fans, people who work for various outlets of social media and fan media, have said they were quite aggressive towards them without provocation. There was a lot of anger with the Portuguese police, and it's something they didn't really experience when they went to Porto, because we've been there quite a few times recently. It just seemed to be a thing that was with the Benfica authorities, and you don't want to see that, because they're only going there to support the club. These fans from Benfica who come over next week, if they behave themselves, which I'm sure they will, and I'm sure that's what Liverpool fans were doing, they go to bars and restaurants, and they might gather in small crowds, like when Liverpool fans go away, and they have a little sing-song, but there's never anything out of touch, out of tone, never any aggression, never any violence. You don't see it.
They're welcome to the city, aren't they? I mean, there's there's loads of people who are all excited and singing songs and having a few drinks. It's not, they're not going to be welcome in the library, but around town they're definitely welcome.
Yeah.
And
we
welcome
same goes
them.
for anyone coming here.
Yeah.
The only issues we've had in recent times have been a couple of small pockets of Italian fans, who do have, it's well publicised. They do have an ultra fan sort of concept where the small pockets will incite violence, or will look to incite violence. And
they do that domestically as well.
It's not just abroad. It's a system. So they've got that within the football, obviously. But we've had fans from all over Europe coming here, and actually Liverpool enjoy it. They like to see people from Serbia coming here and enjoying the way they approach football. The German clubs who've come here, and they'll walk en masse from the city centre to Anfield, a few miles, and it might be a little bit of inconvenience for the traffic, but they're all just doing what their fan culture is, and they'll take a tour around the city. They might all then congregate and walk to the game or whatever, but it's never any animosity, and you do see a lot of police presence around the ground for games such as European nights, or we've got Manchester United and the derby coming up in a few weeks, but you very rarely see any sort of kick-offs or violence, or shepherding people into areas, and the police sort of putting a heavy hand on things. It's just not nice to see. It ruins the spectacle, and it's not something that we should be dealing with in 2022 in European football. It's it's a stigma that's wrongly attached nowadays, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's that age-old thing that I've seen some football fans can be complete and utter knobheads and be horrible and violent and all the rest of it. So they must all be like that, which is just like, it's just like, it's the kind of attitude that applies in more sinister ways as well, and especially with police forces around the world, that they'll decide that because one or two people have been bad apples in any grouping that you want to call it, that they must all be the same. Anyone that they can match to that group in their heads, they're all bad. Tie them all with the same brush, give them all the same treatment, treat them all as badly. And it's just sort of, it's so out of date as an attitude. And I know in a lot of ways, football clubs these days, fans can be self-policing as well. You don't go there to do that. I mean, there's people who've they've got, let's face it, to go to the match now, you've got to have a decent job to go to a match in Benfica, because, it's not cheap. You've got to fly out. You've got to get your tickets. You've got to have your tickets to go to all the games that qualify you to go to it, and all the rest of it. So, we're not talking like, people have got a lot to lose. It's just not in your nature, and you're just enjoying it. We enjoy the culture. We want to be welcome. We're visiting all these cities. And as you say, we tick them off almost, like the fans will tick them off where they've been, and quite often they'll be going back there in the future to have a holiday there, or a city break or whatever, because they've gone to a place and thought, this is all right, this we're seeing this for what it is. They'll try and avoid being shunted into the tourist areas as well. Go and find a proper, like a proper bar, a local bar, somewhere where you get the real sort of feel for the city rather than the sort of tourist board version of the city. So I think, we've got loads of experience of travelling in Europe. Maybe what we need to do is just get the authorities in Lisbon to have a talk to us, and find out where they're going wrong, so that next time they've got a big match against the team, that they don't do that. It's just not on. It's like you say, it's out of date. It's something from the past. It's something from the 80s. It's something that Margaret Thatcher's view of football fans, and that's old now. And the only thing I will say is, you're right, England didn't help. The way they acted in the Euros final, the way they sort of demolished their own stadium almost again was pathetic. But it sums up a lot of England fans. It sums up a lot of the nation at times as well, which is why I think, as those of us in this part of the country quite often separate ourselves from the rest of the country, because it's not so much we're separating ourselves from the rest of the country, it's separating ourselves from that kind of person. But as for the match itself, 3-1, if you just saw the scoreline, you think, well, we coasted that. And if you watched big parts of the games, you'll think we coasted that. But there was a kind of narrative coming out of it that we were lucky to win.
Yeah, I think it was lazy punditry, lazy sort of journalism. Even again at the weekend, it was similar to that. Like, you had Roy coming out and saying that the penalty ruined the game as a spectacle. It was 88 minutes or whatever. Right, behave yourself, Roy. We only get beat if we beat ourselves, I think, these days. And, we gifted them a goal, and it was just into the second half. And, it did raise the confidence. The stadium got rowdy and they had a spell. But I thought the changes, were needed in terms of, they changed the speed of the game. I know, like, the statistics point to the fact that, Henderson come on and didn't really retain possession, but Bobby and Jota did do a lot up front. Bobby especially, his last two games have been exceptional, I think. It just slowed the game down and took the sting out the game. And, for 15, 20 minutes, they had a spell. They had a couple of chances. They were gifted the goal. And any other time, that ball is swept away by Kanate and it's put out for a corner or whatever. It was just an unfortunate situation. I can't think of any other real opportunities they had to trouble us. We missed a lot. Like, we could have been 4 or 5 up by half time. The game could have been dead. But what it has done is it's given us an insight into what they've got, because I think they put all their cards on the table that night and they showed all they've got. That 15, 20 minutes, they showed that why they're in this stage of the competition. They can cause teams problems. People
forget that, don't they? When they're sort of having a go at Liverpool, they forget that at this stage of the competition, there's a pretty good chance that the teams that are in it are half decent. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in it. I mean, they've not got here by fluke. They got here because they're a good team who are playing well, and that just it astounds me how often that bit gets forgotten. And it's always this sort of, I don't know what it is. It's as if there's a clamour that, like, build a team up, knock them down, build someone up, knock them down. It's the same with celebrities and everything in the media at times, isn't it? The mainstream media, as it's sometimes called. It's just this attitude of like, oh yeah, let's just knock them down a peg or two. And instead of enjoying it for what it is, it was a good Liverpool team against a good Portuguese team, a good team who caused us problems here and there when they got the tactics right, but who, in all honesty, rarely really looked like troubling us. But that's the truth. They were good. We were amazing. Or is that just me?
No. I think
maybe not amazing, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but we, when we want to, we've always got an extra gear. I think we were very much in third gear. If we wanted to go up to fifth, then I think we might save that for Sunday, or next week in the semi-final at Wembley. I think we're just that good that we don't need to get out of third gear very often. Second gear even sometimes. And I think that's what we've been in the last few weeks. We've just been ruthlessly efficient. We've not had to put ourselves into fifth gear. If we do, it might only be a 15, 20 minute spell, like it was maybe at Arsenal. And, we coasted through the first half, even though they played their best game of the season or whatever, and they didn't really mount a chance. And then we made a couple of changes or whatever, and for that 15, 20 minutes, we just took the game away from them. And then we slipped ourselves back down to third gear and killed the game off. And that's the sign of a really good team. I think it's just a narrative, isn't it? We've touched on it many a time. Like the mainstream media and whatever, and pundits and people around like the game have always wanted to knock Liverpool down. It's always the big target because, historically we have been one of the biggest and best clubs in the country, if not the world. And it's just easy to try and knock us down a peg or two. We've seen it all before, but we're too long in the tooth. We know all these games, all these tricks, all these headlines. It's not going to affect us. If anything, we revel in it and just think that's the best you can come with because we've seen this one before. Like, we know how this plays out. We'll come out the other side of it, don't you worry.
Yeah, and I think the thing about the gears as well, I mean, I've used that analogy a lot myself this season, but the fact we've got so many is the proof of how good we've become as a team and as a squad and as an overall machine, if that's the right word. Because when you think back to the night we beat Milan in Istanbul, I mean, a historic night, and if we were the kind of city that handed out knighthoods, they'd all have been knighted and stuff like that. But it was an amazing performance. But the truth is, we probably only had 2 gears. And we spent most of Istanbul in second gear revving the arse off the engine because that's what we had to do to get that win, and we had to do it to win. If we'd had 6 gears then in that team, then we could have won it, and maybe third gear we could have done it. Maybe we'd have needed fourth gear, but as it stands at the moment, we've rarely needed to get into those higher gears, but it feels like we've still got them. And I just think that's what's deceiving people. That sometimes it can look like there's been a lack of effort or even complacency, but we do have that occasionally, but it's this feeling that, if you do get through all of our outfield plays, you've still got that monster in the goal to get past. And even if he makes a mistake, by then there's probably one of these lads on the line anyway. I can't remember who it was now. When the one, was it Trent hooked it over, over the bar, and it's this kind of thing. As a team, we find the pieces we need to find. If something starts to break, someone's there fixing it, someone's there propping it up and getting it ready, and then on we go. It's phenomenal to see. I think that, it's been an amazing season. And as we say, we're not sure when you're going to be listening to this. Will you have played City? Will we not? But I think what we can finish off saying now is that whenever you listen to this, the next game we're playing is going to be a big one.
Yeah, every game is potentially a cup final now. Football cliche as it is and whatever, but I was touching it before. We've got within three competitions left. Over the next 3 games, it's 3 different competitions. It's 2 different opponents. We've got a very good handle on one game in the Champions League. That's potentially an opportunity to play with the squad and give us the best possible opportunity for the games against City in the league and the FA Cup. Not happy with the fact that it's in Wembley. Not happy with the fact that there's the transport issues and stuff. We could have delved into all that, but that's by the by. The game's there now. We're just going to have to deal with it. It's just what we do as fans, as Liverpool fans. We just deal with the situation. We will find a way there. I've found a way there one way or another. I'll be down there. Whenever people do get to listen to this, it probably will be some point either just after City or just before the next City game or whatever. But we are in the depths of an unprecedented ride to what could be an unbelievable season. And there's only one place you really want to sit back and enjoy it, and it is on AI, because there's plenty of content. I know we've been missing for a few weeks, but we're hopefully now, we've had a bit of work and sickness issues and so on and so forth, that we can nail down a bit more podcasts for the listeners. I know there'll be a plethora coming out, because as soon as the games come out, as soon as the podcasts come out, there's that much going on. But we will try and give the listener more of this and more of an angle, and we always do, as I say, encourage anyone to fire questions at us. If there's something that you may want to get an insight on from myself or Jim, then we're more than happy to discuss it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think whatever's left now, however many podcasts we can get in before the end of the season, it's going to be literally like, we don't know when you're listening to this. We don't know what game we've just had and what game we've got next, but they'll all be exciting games. No doubt there'll be a mention of how Everton are doing, because, as much as as big a team as Liverpool are, Everton are still in the city. You still notice them now and again. Normally be some sort of cloud over someone's head, but you do notice them. And whatever. Let's see when they get to the end of the season. Are we going to feel sorry for them? I don't know. I mean, one thing you never do ever is say to an Evertonian that you feel sorry for them, because they absolutely hate it. Hint, hint. But anyway, listen, I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks to Jay for being here. I hope you've enjoyed listening. I hope you're enjoying the football, because as Jay's already said, as we keep saying, enjoy it, because you never know how long it's going to last. And right now it's so enjoyable in so many different ways. Whatever happens, you still love this club, and this club are going to give you many, many more happy nights. But enjoy the ones you're getting. And for now, keep listening to AI, keep listening out for us, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.